The boy who never walked into work. He was just walking to meet a ride, and vanished. June 13, 2001, was an ordinary Wednesday in Omaha, Nebraska. Jason Anthony Jolkowski, a shy and soft-spoken 19-year-old, had just a short walk ahead of him, 7 blocks from his house to Benson High School. It was supposed to be a simple, routine meeting with a coworker who offered to drive him to work at a local radio station. But Jason never made it. And in the 2 decades since, no one has seen him again. Who was Jason Jolkowski? Jason wasn't the kind of teen who made headlines. He was quiet, respectful, and responsible. At 19, he still lived at home with his parents, Jim and Kelly Jolkowski, in a quiet suburban neighborhood in northeast Omaha. He was taking college courses at Iowa Western Community College and working part-time at a nearby Fazoli's Italian restaurant. He wasn't a social butterfly, but he wasn't a recluse either. He had friends. He played in a high school band. He loved radio broadcasting and dreamed of becoming a DJ. On paper, he was the type of kid who should have been safe. The kind parents could trust to walk 7 blocks in the middle of the day. But safety is an illusion. Jason disappeared in broad daylight. And that's what makes his case so chilling. What we know is on June 13, 2001, 11 a.m. Jason's shift at the radio station was scheduled to start later that afternoon. A coworker had offered to pick him up for work, but because Jason's house was hard to find, they agreed to meet at Benson High School instead. Jason had attended the school and knew the way, just a quick walk through the neighborhood. His mother, Kelly, saw him bring the trash cans in around 11 a.m., a mundane chore, and the last confirmed sighting of Jason. At 11:15 a.m., he left home. The walk to Benson High should have taken no more than 10 minutes. But he never arrived. The coworker who had agreed to pick him up waited at the school. Minutes passed. Then more. Eventually, she called the house to ask where Jason was. His parents were confused. They assumed he'd already arrived. He never did. That's when reality started to crack. In less than an hour, Jason had vanished, without a trace. No screams. No phone calls. No witnesses. No evidence. A puzzle without pieces. The Omaha Police Department launched an investigation, but it quickly became clear that there were few, if any, leads to follow. There were no signs of struggle. No items left behind. No confirmed sightings. Jason had no history of running away, no mental health concerns, no enemies. He simply vanished somewhere between his front door and the high school. Police canvassed the neighborhood. No one had seen anything unusual. They checked local hospitals. Nothing. They pulled his phone records. There were no outgoing calls. His bank account? Untouched. His social security number? Never used again. It was as if Jason Jolkowski had stepped off the face of the earth. Digital footprints, or lack thereof. In 2001, social media was still in its infancy. Cell phones weren't smart yet. GPS tracking wasn't standard. Jason had a phone, but not the kind that could be tracked. He used it infrequently, and he didn't take it with him on his walk. There were no security cameras along his route, at least none that ever turned up footage. This wasn't just a disappearance. It was a vanishing act, pulled in the space of 10 minutes, in broad daylight, on a school day, in a residential neighborhood. And no one saw a thing. The theories, each one more frustrating than the last. The first theory was a stranger abduction. The most widely accepted theory is that Jason was abducted by a stranger. But even that explanation leaves questions. How does someone kidnap a 6-foot-tall teenager in a quiet neighborhood, in the middle of the day, with no noise, no witnesses, and no evidence? Even the FBI was baffled. There was no indication of a planned attack. No reports of suspicious vehicles. No one in the neighborhood saw Jason walking at all. Was he taken by someone who knew his routine? Was it random? If it was premeditated, how did the abductor know he'd be walking that day? Too many questions. Not enough answers. The second theory was voluntary disappearance. Investigators briefly considered whether Jason had chosen to disappear. But this theory collapsed almost immediately. Jason left behind all his belongings. His money, his ID, his clothes, even his dream of transferring to a broadcasting school in Iowa. He had applied just days before his disappearance. There was no note. No conflict. No signs of depression. And nothing to gain. His family knew him. This wasn't like Jason. And the third theory was someone close. What if Jason didn't disappear at the hands of a stranger? Was there someone in his life he was afraid of? Someone no one else knew about? But once again, the investigation turned up nothing. Friends and family were cleared. Coworkers gave consistent statements. Jason was, by all accounts, well liked. There was no secret life. So why did he disappear? The family's long vigil. Jason's parents, Jim and Kelly Jolkowski, were thrust into a nightmare that has yet to end. With no leads, no body, and no closure, they became advocates for missing persons across the country. In fact, it was Jason's disappearance that inspired the creation of Jason's Law, legislation that led to the creation of Nebraska's missing persons database and better protocols for police response. But for the Jolkowski family, the law was never enough. They wanted their son back. Each year on the anniversary of his disappearance, they held vigils. They launched websites. They did media interviews. They never stopped asking questions. And they never stopped hoping. Haunting details that still linger. There are pieces of this case that still don't sit right. Little moments that raise questions even 20 years later. Why was there no confirmed sighting of Jason on his walk? Not a single neighbor reported seeing him. Was someone watching him? The timing of his disappearance, within just minutes of leaving his house, suggests someone may have been waiting. Why hasn't his body ever been found? Even in stranger abductions, remains are often discovered years later. But Jason left no trace. Was there someone in the background, someone just out of view, that authorities never uncovered? The silent witness or missed opportunity? Benson High School, the agreed-upon meeting spot, was busy that day. Teachers, staff, and summer school students were on campus. But no one saw Jason. Not even a glimpse. It's a location that should have offered clues. But it offered nothing. Unanswered questions. Did Jason ever actually leave his neighborhood? Was he lured by someone he knew and trusted? Was a vehicle involved? Could a serial predator have been operating in the area at the time? Has someone, somewhere, stayed silent all these years? Where the case stands today. As of today, Jason Jolkowski remains missing. No suspects. No person of interest. No forensic evidence. His case remains open, labeled a non-family abduction by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. His parents still hope for answers, though they acknowledge time is working against them. In 2021, on the 20th anniversary of his disappearance, his mother said, "I still believe someone out there knows something. I don't believe people vanish without someone seeing." The boy who disappeared into thin air. Jason Jolkowski's story is one of the most haunting unsolved disappearances in America. It has all the ingredients of a nightmare: a loving family, a responsible teen, a normal neighborhood, a short walk, and a vanishing that defies logic. No matter how many years pass, the questions remain. How does a 19-year-old vanish in 10 minutes? Who took Jason Jolkowski? And why hasn't anyone come forward?